President Obama has called the Afghan presidential election an important step forward, and he praised the millions of people voting in the face of intimidation from the Taliban. The chief EU election observer says they were generally fair, but not free everywhere. Both leading contenders in the election, incumbent Hamid Karzai and ex-Foreign Minister Abdullah, have claimed to be ahead in the count, but officials say it's too early for either man to claim victory.
It's counting the votes and weeding out fraud that will prove crucial in this election. Leading candidates are accusing each other of buying votes and fixing the result.
There are a lot of complaints about irregularities throughout the country. There are reports of rigging. These are not satisfactory. But as a whole, the fact that the election took place and the people participated, though in some parts with low turnout, then it in itself was a step forward. And the preliminary results are, as far as my campaign is concerned, I am in the lead.
President Karzai's campaign has already claimed outright victory, a claim dismissed by rival camps. But with results not yet announced, Afghan officials want an end to the speculation.
The announcement should come from a legal organisation, which is the responsibility of the Independent Election Commission. Any results announced by other sources before the official IEC announcement is not legal.
With candidates trading accusations, there are fears that violence could break out. While initial results are expected in the next few days, it could still be weeks until we know who's officially won this election. Martin Patience, BBC News, Northern Afghanistan.
Well, across the border, European Union election observers have declared Afghanistan's landmark elections as generally fair, but not necessarily free everywhere. Other independent observers, which sends more than 7,000 monitors across the country, said they'd found evidence of ballot box stuffing, multiple voting, low turnout, and violence and intimidation, not only by the Taliban.
Now, following last week's voting in Afghanistan, the Election Complaints Commission says the number of irregularities reported could affect the final outcome. The main challenger, Abdullah, says he has evidence that voting has been widely rigged in favour of the incumbent, Hamid Karzai. Preliminary results are due this week, although the full result won't be known until next month. Mr Karzai is the favourite amongst the 36 candidates vying to be president. The Electoral Commission has received more than 200 complaints alleging voter intimidation, violence, ballot box tampering and interference. Abdullah says vastly exaggerated voter turnouts are also being reported, especially in Taliban strongholds. Let's go and join Lutfullah Latif. He is the editor of the BBC's Afghan service. We were expecting some degree of irregularities. That was widely predicted. How bad does it seem?
Well, there are a lot of allegations and charges of fraud and irregularities, as you know. But it is now important that how do they deal with this problem? It's up to the Election Commission now to deal with them with the accusation in a transparent manner that win public support and public confidence in the process. Tomorrow is a critical day. Tomorrow is expected that they will announce some preliminary results of the election. It's important to see who is in the lead. And this will be the preliminary results. But in the next weeks, we will see further results.
Is there some kind of benchmark, though? Is it thought that some degree of irregularity is acceptable?
Well, you see, Afghanistan is not a normal country. The situation is difficult and voters were not able to take part in some provinces. And in that situation, it was expected that there will be some degree of fraud. But it is now important to see whether the fraud is in a scale that put the legitimacy and credibility of the whole process in question. And I know Afghanistan needs a government, a strong government, credible and acceptable for all, to be able to fight huge challenges like the insurgency, the Taliban insurgency, the drug trade, corruption, and improve economy. But if the results are so problematic, then it will be a huge challenge for the government and also the international community, because it will be seen as the international community supporting a weak government.
What about the specific allegations of Abdullah, and what are his supporters saying if some of these prove to be true?
Well, it's difficult to say now. The Commission has said that they will investigate, and they wanted those allegations, those people who are alleged the allegation, to put forward their evidence to the Commission. Well, it's difficult to predict, but we will see how they deal with it.
But Phil Latif, thanks for joining us with that analysis from central London.
Now to the war in Afghanistan. 4 more American servicemen were killed today, making this the deadliest year for US and UK troops since the conflict began in 2001. Meanwhile, in the southern city of Kandahar, a number of simultaneous attacks killed at least 40 civilians. And the clouds are gathering over last week's presidential election as well. The BBC has obtained more evidence of corruption, with ballot papers dumped by the roadside. The BBC's Ian Pannell reports now from Kabul.
For 8 years, they fought and died in Afghanistan. A battle against the Taliban, but also a fight for stability and democracy. This election was to be a shining moment. Millions turned out to cast their vote. But now there are concerns that the election may be seriously flawed.
Excellency, Mr. Hamid Karzai has received 212,927 votes.
Today we got the first results. Just 10% of votes counted, and Hamid Karzai has 40%, his nearest challenger 38%. With many votes still to be tallied, this is likely to change.
It was widely crafted and engineered to steal the process, to steal the votes by the incumbent, by Mr. Karzai in its relevant authorities. So that outcome we will not allow.
We were given a secret recording by the Abdullah campaign. The man on the left appears to be ticking the box for Hamid Karzai on sheet after sheet of voting papers. If this is authentic, then it would be a serious breach of election law. It's not the only allegation of fraud. This is what remains of hundreds of votes for another candidate. They should have been placed in a ballot box. Instead, they were found ripped up and dumped by the roadside. Mirwaz Yassini has handed them over to investigators. He calls this the slaughter of democracy in Afghanistan.
It's a coup d'etat. It's not an election. And if I do not object that, then I will be mischieving with my constituent, with my nation, with my supporter. And I don't want to dodge them. I don't want to deceive them. I would like to be realistic.
For now, it's impossible to say quite how widespread the rigging has been. But there's a growing unease that the West was too quick to declare this process a success and a victory for the Afghan people. And there's a real concern now that democratic principles are being put at risk.
This has been the worst year for American and British troops since 2001. They fought hard to make areas safe for voting. Many died or were wounded. Reports to the BBC from locals in parts of Helmand where British forces have been most active suggest a low turnout. In Nadali, population 60,000, just 600 people voted. In Kajaki, population 55,000, only 300 are believed to have turned out. And in Babaji, scene of the fiercest fighting, just 150 people are reported to have voted. The Afghan Election Commission refused to comment on these figures. Tonight, the Taliban attacked again. A massive car bomb in Kandahar, leaving dozens dead and many injured. This is what scares ordinary Afghans. It's what kept many away from the polls. And whatever the outcome of this election, it's what British and American forces will still have to deal with. Ian Pannell, BBC News, Kabul.